Have you ever asked yourself this powerful question? What would my life look like if I stopped watching others and started building my own? Let that question settle in your mind like a seed, for that seed, if nurtured with discipline, belief, and direction, can grow into a tree of unstoppable success. Let me tell you something I've learned from a lifetime of studying the most successful men of industry, thought, and invention. One of the greatest secrets to their advancement wasn't competition. See, it wasn't connections. It wasn't privilege. It was focus. Ruthless, unwavering, unapologetic focus on their own mission, their own calling, their own business, and not anybody else's. When you mind your own business, life rewards you. You stop bleeding energy where it doesn't belong. You stop reacting to distractions that have nothing to do with your purpose. You stop comparing yourself to people who aren't even walking the same road. And most importantly, you start building something real, something that reflects the power of your thoughts, the discipline of your habits, and the clarity of your vision. You see, most people are not failing because they lack talent. They are failing because they are investing their attention in everything but what matters. They are experts at watching, not creating. They know the headlines of other people's lives but have no manuscript for their own. They speak often, but they execute rarely. They know more about celebrities than they do about their own future. This is the disease of the age, distraction disguised as relevance. You must choose to live differently. You must choose to mind your own business, not just in conversation, but in concentration. When I say mind your own business, I'm not simply telling you to stay out of drama. I'm inviting you to step into dominion, to take back full authority over your mind, your time, your priorities, and your destiny. Because until you own those things, you will always be a servant to someone else's vision. Understand this. Your mind is a garden. What grows in it is entirely your responsibility. If you are not planting ideas of success, focus, and progress, then weeds of doubt, comparison, and mediocrity will overtake it. That's not a guess. That's a law. The law of attention says, what you focus on expands. So if you are focusing on gossip, other people's approval, or the fear of judgment, then you are watering the wrong soil. And don't be surprised when the harvest is bitter. But when you begin each day by asking, what is mine to build today? What is mine to control today? What is mine to master today? Now you are operating on the level of a builder, a leader, a creator. This is the difference between drifting and directing. Most men drift. They float along on the surface of life, reacting to everything, pulled by every wave, wind, and whisper. They get up in the morning already behind, already tied into other people's energy, their opinions, their needs, their chaos. And by noon, they are depleted. And by night, they feel defeated. Then they wonder why nothing is changing. But the man who minds his own business has a different aura. You feel it. You see it. He's not loud, but he's clear. He's not everywhere, but he's effective. He's not seeking validation because he's got a vision. When you mind your own business, your energy sharpens. Your conversations get shorter. Your circle gets smaller. Your habits get cleaner. Your goals get clearer. Why? Because success is not just about what you add, it's about what you eliminate. And the first thing you must eliminate is the need to explain yourself. You don't owe anyone your energy, your reasoning, or your presence unless it aligns with your purpose. Let them misunderstand you. Let them question you. Let them gossip. Just don't let them distract you. Because every moment you spend explaining is a moment you're not executing. Let me repeat that. Every moment you spend explaining is a moment you're not executing. You are not here to be understood by the average. You are here to transcend the average. And you can't do that if you're constantly pulled into emotional debates, online drama, or trying to fix what was never broken in you to begin with. Here's the truth most don't want to hear. The path to peace, power, and prosperity is not noisy. It is quiet. It is personal. It is internal. It is doing the work while no one claps. It is making the plan while others mock. It is staying consistent while others drift. And it is winning in silence not because you're hiding, but because you're building. Do you want to know why silence is so powerful? Because while the world screams, the man who is silent sees. He sees the patterns. He sees the openings. He sees where others are too busy reacting. And from that stillness, he strikes with precision. This is not passive living. This is purposeful dominance. You don't need to talk about it. You don't need to post about it. Just move, just grow, just execute. The results will speak loud enough. And when they do, remember, don't get distracted by the applause either. Because applause is just another form of noise. Stay on course. There will be people who hate that you've chosen yourself. They will resent your discipline. They will misunderstand your silence. They will call your boundaries selfish. But let me remind you, their confusion is not your problem. Their reactions are not your responsibility. Your only duty is to the calling within you, to the vision that was given to you and not to them. When you stop explaining yourself and start becoming yourself, you shift the entire energy of your life. You create momentum where there was once hesitation. You create discipline where there was once delay. You create focus where there was once frustration. This is what happens when you mind your own business. You become magnetic. Success begins to find you. Opportunities begin to notice you. The right people begin to align with you, not because you chased them, but because you became the kind of person worth being connected to. This is how wealth is built, not from noise, but from clarity. You don't become wealthy chasing every trend. You don't become powerful copying every move. You become powerful when you own your lane so thoroughly that no one else can imitate it. That kind of power begins the day you choose to protect your peace, value your focus, and direct your time like a general on a mission, not a civilian waiting to be told what to do. I say this to you not to inspire you, but to awaken you. You have a business to build, a life to lead, a mind to master, and every second you spend focusing on what someone else is doing is a second stolen from your legacy. Guard your attention like treasure. Protect your energy like a fortress. And above all, mind your own business. That is not an insult. It is a call to greatness. It is the only way to build a life that is truly yours. And once you understand that, once it clicks, once it becomes your default state of being, you will look back one day not in regret but in reverence. You will say, "Thank God I stopped watching and started working. Thank God I stopped reacting and started creating. Thank God I learned the discipline of minding my own business." Because that, more than intelligence, more than talent, more than money, is the root of real success. It is the soil from which your legacy will grow. And if you're willing to protect it, it will reward you in ways the world can't even comprehend. Now let us examine the fruits that begin to appear when you commit fully to minding your own business, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and materially. For it is not a passive act. No, it is the deliberate withdrawal from trivial distractions and the intentional redirection of your life's energy toward constructive enterprise. When you mind your own business, you are no longer a servant to public opinion. You no longer beg for validation in the marketplace of noise. You find your power in clarity, and clarity becomes the currency through which you operate. The man who minds his own business becomes dangerous, not in the sense of harm, but in the sense that he is immune to manipulation. He cannot be lured by gossip. He cannot be baited into envy. He does not compare his chapter 3 to another man's chapter 10, because he knows that his only competition is the man he was yesterday. Your peace is power. Do not let that escape you. And your silence is not weakness. It is the soil where strength takes root. What begins to happen when you make this shift? When you pull your focus inward, away from the noise, away from the opinions, away from the need to impress, you gain momentum. You see, most people remain stagnant not because they lack potential, but because they are perpetually entangled in things that do not concern them. They waste hours debating the behavior of others. They scroll endlessly through lives that aren't theirs. They speak loudly about goals but do not guard the path toward them. Their energy is split between 100 things that yield no return. But you, the man who minds his own business, you begin to build quiet momentum. No one sees the early mornings. No one witnesses the late nights. No one hears the conversations you have with yourself, but it is happening nonetheless. Every hour spent in focus builds confidence. Every day spent in discipline sharpens your edge. And eventually, the results begin to speak in a volume louder than any self-promotion. Now, this is where the power compounds. Because when you operate from this centered state, you attract not just wealth, but the right kind of wealth. The wealth of self-respect, the wealth of time, the wealth of clarity. And yes, the wealth of money, because money, though not the goal, is the byproduct of sustained value delivered into the world without distraction. Let me remind you, the riches you desire are not found by chasing them in the external world. They are created by aligning your internal world. Control your thoughts and your circumstances will bow. Discipline your habits and success will follow your command. Protect your energy and your environment will elevate to meet you. This is what begins to happen when you mind your business. Not just the business of money, but the business of growth, of integrity, of mission, of purpose. You become unshakable. And that, my friend, is where the transformation becomes evident. You stop seeking revenge or applause. You stop worrying who supports you or who doesn't. You stop chasing trends. Because now, your sense of self is not rooted in external reaction, but internal conviction. You know what you are building. You know why you rise each morning. You know what you stand for. That kind of clarity intimidates the noisy, but it liberates the focused. Understand this. Your energy is your most valuable asset, and wherever you place your attention, you invest your future. Most people squander it in useless debate, argument, and competition, but not you. You invest it in mastery. You invest it in your health. You invest it in your vision. You invest it in becoming so consistent, so focused, so aligned that success is no longer an event, it is a byproduct. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly sat with your vision uninterrupted? When was the last time you disconnected from the crowd to reconnect with your calling? That silence you're avoiding, that's where the answers live. And once you learn to thrive in that solitude, you become selective, not arrogant, but discerning. You don't consume what everyone else consumes. You don't say yes out of guilt. You don't need to defend your pace, your choices, or your timeline because you've outgrown the need to be understood. You are too busy becoming. That's the real power behind minding your own business. It grants you access to compounding growth. Small wins become habits. Habits become standards. Standards become identity. And identity becomes destiny. Now, let me speak plainly to you. Not everyone will understand your silence. Some will mistake it for weakness. Some will project their own fear onto it. Some will try to drag you back into the noise, into their drama, into their insecurities. Why? Because your peace confronts their chaos. Your focus highlights their distractions. Your discipline magnifies their excuses. But you must remain unmoved, because the moment you lower your frequency to match theirs, you surrender your progress. Remain committed to your mission. Let your work speak where words are no longer required. Let your focus be so unwavering that your name is whispered in rooms you haven't entered yet. Let your actions become a message too loud to ignore, even in silence. And let the results that come from that discipline serve as a testimony, not just to others, but to yourself. That you did not cave, that you stayed the course, that you trusted the process. This is the essence of self-leadership. And make no mistake, self-leadership is rare. It requires maturity. It requires the courage to go against the grain. It requires the humility to improve privately and the strength to succeed quietly. So I say to you, stop explaining, stop justifying, stop entertaining noise. You have work to do. You have a life to build. You have a mind to develop, a body to strengthen, a legacy to craft. And none of that can be accomplished if you're constantly seeking applause for every move. Mature ambition is not loud. It is focused. And focused men do not waste time trying to convince the world they're worthy. They know that proof follows discipline. And now I ask you, are you ready to live that way? Are you ready to silence the world so you can hear your purpose more clearly? Are you ready to become the man who is so dialed into his growth that distractions dissolve? Then start today. Reclaim your mornings. Reclaim your schedule. Reclaim your energy. Reclaim your mind. You owe it to your potential. You owe it to your future. You owe it to every version of you that had to fight to get here. Minding your own business is not a retreat, it is a strategic repositioning. It is stepping back from the noise so you can rise with precision. And when you do, when you stand firm in that silence, understand this. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. And when the time comes, when the season arrives, when the results are ready to emerge, they will do so not because you begged, but because you built. This is what happens when you mind your own business. There is a power that multiplies when a man minds his own business, not just in work, but in thought, in energy, in devotion. This power is called concentration, and it is one of the most undervalued forces in the world. When you concentrate your mind on your business, your true business, you build momentum so unshakable that no critic, no distraction, no storm can tear it down. Now let me make this perfectly clear. Minding your own business is not about selfishness. It is about responsibility. It is about knowing what is your task and what is not. It is about guarding your time, your energy, your ideas like a king guards his crown. And when you do this, when you put your hands to your craft with full intensity and no external interference, you begin to notice something strange happen. The world around you starts to shift. Doors begin to open that were once sealed. People start to take notice. The same individuals who mocked your silence will now chase your wisdom. Why? Because silence and results are louder than noise and opinion. You see, when you stop worrying about what others are doing, how fast they're moving, how much they're achieving, you allow yourself the full luxury of depth. You stop scratching the surface. You go deep. And in depth you find greatness, because surface is crowded. But depth is empty. That's where the few go. That's where mastery lives. And mastery attracts wealth not because you chase it, but because it cannot resist true excellence. The man who minds his business knows the difference between movement and progress, between attention and impact, between applause and accomplishment. Now let me tell you something you may have forgotten. You do not owe anyone your attention. You owe them your results. You owe the world your service, your brilliance, your purpose, not your responses to rumors, your rebuttals to criticism, or your opinions on gossip. Every second you spend defending yourself, explaining yourself, or responding to noise is a second stolen from your legacy. And this is where most people fail. They don't know how to sit quietly in their own lane. They're addicted to comparison, addicted to clapping back, addicted to proving they're right. And in all that proving, they lose their power. Because power does not scream. Power just moves. So I ask you today, are you minding your own business, or are you distracted by theirs? Are you watering your own soil, or are you trying to uproot someone else's tree? You must understand you do not need to destroy another man's house to build your own. You do not need to outshine others. You need only to ignite your own light so brightly, so purely, that darkness cannot exist around it. That's what happens when you mind your own business. Your energy becomes magnetic. Your presence becomes respected. Your word becomes rare and valuable. And your work begins to speak without needing explanation. Now here's the truth no one likes to say out loud. Most people are not disciplined enough to focus on their own growth. It's easier to watch someone else's journey than to walk your own. It's easier to critique from the sidelines than to build from the foundation. But what's easier is rarely what leads to wealth, to freedom, to mastery. You see, discipline is the quiet architect of destiny. Every single day that you choose to ignore the distractions, the debates, the drama, and instead commit to your business, your routine, your calling, you're building a future others will one day envy. But that future only belongs to the builder, not the bystander. And the builder keeps his head down, not in shame, but in strategy. He wakes up with clarity. He works in silence. He doesn't argue, he executes. He doesn't react, he rises. He doesn't explain, he expands. Because he knows his business is not for everyone to understand, it is for him to fulfill. Now understand this. Wealth follows those who stay consistent. Not flashy, not reactive, not emotionally erratic. Just disciplined, just committed, just doing what they said they'd do long after the mood they said it in is gone. That's the true meaning of minding your own business. It means you don't betray your path just because someone else took a shortcut. It means you don't measure your value by applause, but by alignment. It means you let your results arrive before your reputation. And when the results arrive, and they will, everything changes. The critics disappear. The doubters go silent. The world that ignored you now studies you, but by then you're no longer seeking their attention. You've outgrown it because you've built something real. Something that wasn't born in a comment section, but in your conviction. You see, when you spend enough time focused, disciplined, and detached from noise, something miraculous happens. You become unbothered, not passive, not arrogant, but deeply, unshakably centered. That's when you become dangerous, not because you wish harm, but because you are no longer vulnerable to distraction. Your mind becomes a fortress. Your path becomes clear. Your time becomes sacred. And your life becomes evidence that silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. So let them talk. Let them guess. Let them assume. You keep building. You keep sharpening. You keep evolving. And remember this. There will be a moment not far from now where your silence will be the loudest sound in the room. Not because of what you say, but because of what you've done. You'll walk in and they will already know. Because real power doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with presence. That's the reward for minding your own business. That's the victory no one can take from you. That's the life that belongs to the builder, the doer, the focused, the silent one who stayed the course while others chased approval. Now go forward and reclaim your attention. Reclaim your energy. Reclaim your business. Because greatness isn't found in proving. It is found in producing. Let the world speak. You execute. Let the world wander. You build. Let the world judge. You rise. This is what happens when you mind your own business. You don't need validation because you've already built value. And that is success no man can question.